So long answer question, either 15 marks or 20 marks. So 2017, they had given question or discuss various approaches of study of social stratification. So approaches of study of social stratification. So that is for 15 marks. In 2021, it repeated as discuss various forms of social stratification. So various forms of social stratification. So this is also for 20 marks, which it came in 2021. So here you can see, so this question has multiple dimensions. The first dimension we have to cover as definition. The second one is you have to write various forms. And third one is characteristics. And the fourth one is functions of social stratification. So whenever anything is created by human being, so we create because it has some purpose, some function, and theories and criticisms on the theories. So these are all the various dimensions of social stratification, in which forms had given 1 year in 2021, various approaches has given in 2017. So now what is social stratification? First of all, to know about social stratification, in every society there exists a many number of social groups or classes. The relationship between the classes, so the relationship between the classes or social groups, so they have follow a particular pattern of interaction. That particular pattern of interaction has multiple dimensions. That means there might be some groups are top, some groups are middle, some groups are bottom when it comes to the hierarchy. So that means in some societies, so why this hierarchy? So that means you should understand this social stratification has been present in human societies since ancient time, and it came into being as a result of birth of agriculture. So birth of agriculture has many positives, negatives on human societies. The first negative was it created inequality. So with respect to ownership of the land. So prior to agriculture societies they had no notion of ownership. So traders, some people became soldiers, some people became cultivators, some are service communities, some are royal nobles, kings, etc. So here each group restricted only one activity, is specialized in that activity. So no group do all kind of activity which is required for their survival. Understand? But earlier pre-agriculture societies, each clan group manages their own polity, their own economy, their own rituals and everything. But here the priest class come into being. They took over the religious affairs. The king and the nobles come into being. They took over the political affairs. The farmers, they dedicated for cultivation. Traders, they exchange the goods from between needy people as well as the surplus people. And the service communities, they restricted like washerman, barber, weavers, this kind of new communities. That means division of labor. So division of labor based on specific activities come into being by birth of agriculture. So this was the social stratification. So because whatever I spoke, it is general in nature. But when it comes to academic concept, who had studied on this concept, who were they, what manner they defined it, that we have to see in the form of definitions. So here, for definition point of view, so these people were socialists, because the social stratification was heavily studied by sociologists. So if you remember that scope of sociology subject, so it restricted for agrarian communities as well as urban civilized societies. They never go into the primitive societies or pre-agriculture societies. So that's why most of the socialists like Malvin and M. Thumin, he defined social stratification as arrangement of any social group or society, arrangement of any social group or society into hierarchy of positions. So this hierarchy of position is always unequal. So with respect to power, property, social evaluation, as well as social gratification. So here you can see it is hierarchy. So this is the hierarchy, groups are arranged. So these groups, when it comes to fulfillment of, with respect to power, the top group has the highest power. The power declines when it comes to down. So the bottom group has least power, privileges, as well as rewards. But highest group has politically strongest. They have all the power concentrated in their hands. So the property also, these political people also control the lot of property. So the property owning declines when it comes to the bottom of the layers. And next one you can see social evaluation. Because of politically, economically they are strong. Their social status is very high. Their social status is very high. Because these two are declining while coming down. So these social status also gradually declines. And social gratification. So gratification is nothing but fulfilling of needs, per se biological needs. So if you remember that most of the nobles, kingsmen, they have multiple wives. They could satisfy their biological needs with multiple wives or multiple women. That means when high social status, high political power, and high property concentrated in the top group, they could satisfy their various needs. So when compared to other people, their needs satisfaction is very high level when compared to lower people. That means the needs fulfillment when it comes to lower groups are very less. The needs fulfillment when it comes to the higher group is very high. That is called social gratification. So that means what he said, Malvin and Tomin, is nothing but it is the hierarchy of people fixing into the positions. So this hierarchy is based on the inequality, which is regarded on the basis of power, property, social evaluation, as well as the social gratification. So when it comes to Lundberg, so he said that a stratified society is one marked by inequality. So inequality with respect to political, economical, social, religious, social gratification. So the differences among the people are evaluated as lower and higher. Some groups are higher in the stratification, some groups are lower in the stratification. So stratification in general notion is nothing but arrangement of people into a hierarchical position. Okay, so these positions are evaluated on the basis of certain criteria. Okay, so next, Gisbert, he said that, so this is very accurate definition you can see. So Gisbert, he said, he defined social stratification as division of society into permanent groups. That means here the hierarchy never changes. So whenever they want, the hierarchy is permanent and fixed. Once it come into being, nobody has dare to change it. That means permanent groups, permanent groups of categories linked with each other by the relationship of superiority and subordination. So here always lower groups subordinate for the top group, and for this group remaining two groups are subordinate. For this group, these remaining groups are subordinate. So this is how top groups are always. When we move from bottom to up, superiority increases. When we move from top to bottom, superiority declines and it becomes subordination of each group. So this is how permanent fixing of social groups or social classes into hierarchy of higher, superior and subordination is nothing but social stratification according to this Gisbert. So these are all various definitions. You should not write in generalistic manner because it was studied by various sociologists. The authenticative definitions you have to always choose. So without modifying anything in this definition, as easily you have to present. So after seeing this, there is inequality or inequality. No, next one is permanent basis. These social groups are hierarchically arranged in the permanent in nature. So the social criteria was power, property, social evaluation, as well as social gratification. So higher and lower, superiority and subordination, these were the general characteristics of social stratification. So now when it comes to, so what was the result of arranging these groups into or classes into higher and lower? So it led to the creation of structure for that society. So structural features. If you remember in our society discussion, what is the structure of Indian society? Indian society rooted its structure to Varna stratification. Varna stratification or caste stratification. The structural feature of India is nothing but Varna or caste. Okay, so whenever the societies formed this kind of layered arrangement of social groups, it is nothing but its society structure. And second thing is here social structure looks like a pyramid. So why they call it as pyramid means, so we can say that it's like a stack. So stack also good. Okay, this is the how top group, middle groups, and bottom group. So instead of this kind of form comparison, they given as pyramid. Why they are pyramid means here the top group numerically they are very less. So numerically they are very less, but when it comes to criteria wise, they are very powerful. Numerically less, but politically, economically, religiously, they have higher privileges, higher rewards, right? When it comes to middle people, so they are somewhat more than the higher people. When it comes to bottom, so the people are more in number. So numerically, they are more in number, but they have less privileges. They are always subordinated. They are always lower. Understand? So this is how the numerical aspect also should include in the stratification. They always compared as a, this stratification led to the formation of pyramidal arrangement of social classes. Okay, so this is all about structural features, and the structure always looks like a pyramid of every society. So now we will see the basis forms of social stratification. So just now I told that, so these stratification was the result of agriculture invention or domestication of plants and animals. So those societies were spread different continents. Okay, in these different continents, in time being, they had created various forms of social stratification. In Europe, social stratification is different. In Southern Europe, Western Europe, stratification is different. Southern Europe stratification is different. South Asia, that stratification is different. And different time periods. So different time periods. So different space, places. So different time periods and different places in the human history, we had seen various forms of emergence of social stratification. And here the basis of social stratification could also be divided into two types. The basis is two types. First one is so ascribed basis. That means if you are an individual born in a society, so by birth itself, you get a place in the hierarchy. The birth decides the place in the hierarchy that we call as, ascribed status, ascribed based status in the stratification. And second one is achievement based. So achievement based position within the stratification. So here a person born with some layer, he could change his position in the stratification. That means if a person born in the lower, in a periodical arrangement, if a person born in a lower, he could change his position to middle or upper based on his efforts. So based on his skills, training, efforts, and etc. That means mobility. So in a society which has stratification, but the stratification allows mobility from higher to lower or lower to higher, that kind of stratified societies we call as achievement based stratification societies. So in a society, the place in the stratification or position is fixed because of the birth, and it could not be allowed to change the status, that we call as ascribed based stratification. The best examples here are, so Varna or caste system in India, and the second one is free and unfree. Third one is estate system. And the fourth one is ruling class. So here achievement based are occupational. Second one is income. Third one is administrative positions. So these are all best example for achievement based stratified societies. So now we will see one by one. So free and unfree. It was the stratification society of medieval time. So medieval time in Western Europe. So here landlords, they were the controller of all the lands, but they don't till their lands. Serfs. So that means they have very small plots of land. Small plots of land. So they cultivate this land with their family labor, and the remaining time they work on the landlord's estates. So they had used lands and they were the owners, but they didn't engage in the cultivation. So they are virtually free from the agricultural operation. But the serfs were, they are small owners of the small plots. They cultivate their land, and the remaining time they work for the landlords. Every landlord has some territory controlled. In the territory there are many serfs. Serfs, they do their work as well as landlord work also. But here slaves, it was the third category in the stratification. They are completely unfree. So they have no rights or privileges. They were on the control of landlords. So the master, whatever the master said, it has to be done by the slaves. But serfs are somewhat free. Landlords were completely free. Serfs were somewhat free, but slaves were completely unfree. So these kind of stratification related to the control of land and regarding the activities of agriculture operation, that was we have seen in medieval time of Western Europe. So the second form, this is comes under, it is permanent. So the status is inheritance. So nobody could change their status. Slaves could not become a serfs. Serfs could not become a landlords. It is permanently fixed, hereditary based. So that's why it comes under the ascribed basis of social stratification. The next one is caste in India. So this was ancient in roots. So ancient roots, and so it is permanent, present in South Indian subcontinent. So initially it called as Varna, and later caste system also used for the same kind of stratification. So caste and Varna, sometimes we interchangeably use it. So next one is, in this pyramid, the Brahmins were top. Okay, Kshatriyas were next in the Brahmins, and Vaishyas were next in the Kshatriyas, and Sudras, and finally untouchables. So this is how the social status. Brahmins have highest privileges with respect to knowledge, any law making, or any kind of enforcement of dharmas. So this is how they were the preachers. They are very cleanest and purest. So professions they took. Unclean, okay, unhealthy professions were given to the impure profession. So this stratification is basically on the basis of purity and impurity concept. So purity, opposite of impurity. So the Brahmins were purest and untouchables were impure. So this is how the political privileges, economic privileges, social status, everything changes from Brahmin to untouchable. They have no privileges, nothing. They have no privileges. They were placed outside of the villages, so with zero privileges. So this is in the Indian context or subcontinent of India. And third form, estate and status. So estate and status, it was coming to being in Europe, especially after the fall of Roman Empire. So southern, eastern, southwestern regions of Europe, so there was a separate kind of stratification coming to being over a period of time after the fall of Roman Empire. So here lords are temporal. They were the feudal. So feudalists. So that means they have control of polity, economy. So they are the highest privileges socially also. So this is the one of the feudalist place. So this was controlled by lords of temporal. All this land belongs to this lords of temporal. And here all the villages and lands belongs to lords of temporal. So some lands were given to lords of spiritual, that is religious people. Church, institution of church also controls some of the lands. And the commoners, so they had no lands in their name, so they mostly work on the feudalist lands as well as the lords of spiritual. So here it's kind of so delegating their land for cultivation purpose of the commoners. So here they impose high burden of the taxes, all the privileges, luxuries, everything enjoyed by the lords of temporal as well as the lords of spiritual. But the commoner people were faced the burnt of burdens imposed by upper two estates. It led to the rebellion against the two estates. That was the cause of French Revolution. Understand? So these kind of stratification we had seen in Western as well as Southern Europe. So now the fourth one, so occupational income, occupational as well as income based. It was the result of birth of industrial revolution, especially in Western societies. So Rogoff as well as Talcott Parson, they studied the occupational stratification. So in France as well as the United States. So they understood that the position was highest in prestige when it comes to social aspect. So position has the highest earning and highest social respect. When it comes to the shoe shiner, he has the lowest earning as well as the lowest in the social respect, social status. So further they studied that. So income based stratification. So those who are earning so more money, they are placed as rich class. So less money, they are placed as a middle class. Poor class, virtually their money earning capacity is very, very low. That means here, so they devised a criteria on the basis of the amount they earning. So this is how rich class, middle class, poor class come into being in the Western capitalist countries. So this is another. But here you can see that this is achievement based. So achievement based stratification. Even we know that if a person has more money, he obviously gets political priorities. Okay, politicians respect him, society respect him, everybody respect him. That means wealth decides the privileges and everything in a society, that we call as a income based stratified societies. Next, we will move on to the race and ethnicity. So it was the birth of colonization. So birth of colonization, when white man contacted with the indigenous people, so especially Africa, ASEAN people as well as the indigenous people of North and South America. So they are distinct in the color, that is black color. So black color as well as slave trade also resulted in heavy contact between the whites and blacks. So this here all the white men always formed into a single layer. So they always control the this black people. So black people. So that means white man has highest privileges, social respect, politically, religious and everything, and black people are seen as a slaves. So you could remember that apartheidism practiced in South Africa, where those white man areas could not be allowed by these black people. They required a permission to enter into the white man area. That pass for the entry system they had created. So these kind of differentiation formed because of race and ethnicity. So next one, so ruling class, it was the relationship between lord and servant relationship. All the princely states in our Indian context, princely states, okay, nobles, they are formed on the highest in the stratification. The ruling people, they are like servant, they are the lords and these are all the servants. So their privileges are different. So even these classes, after coming to the democracy also, they are controlling the remaining classes by establishment of various political parties or controlling the pressure groups also. That means whatever the means, the political system has been changing, but still this kind of ruling classes, they ascertain their political power through establishment of parties as well as controlling the pressure groups. So even democracy could not demolish their privileges, that you can see. Next one is administrative positions. So administrative positions could be traced. If you go to the Mauryan dynasty, it was heavily centralized administration. So each department was controlled by some bureaucrats, some ministers. Under ministers, bureaucrats were there. So more or less, even today, we are replicating the same kind of administrative setup: central administration, provincial administration, local administration. So the same kind of setup. So if you take that, civil services people of central administration are superior than the provincial civil services aspirants. So provincial, administrative or bureaucratic setup is always subordinate to the central bureaucratic administrative setup. So within the same department also, we can trace out the hierarchy. So for suppose you can take police and military. So here the uniforms, badges, as well as ribbons distinguish their rank. So their inequality, rank, privileges, everything could be understood by the way they wear uniform, badges, as well as the ribbons. So it is distinguish their rank, privileges in a same department. So this is how various forms. You could remember what are all the forms. First one is free and free, caste or varna system, so estate system, so ruling classes, occupational income, administrative. So this was the question given in 2021 for 15 marks. So first you define, and later I directly attack on the various forms which were created by humans at different places at different times. So now we will see third aspect of social stratification, that is characteristics. So the characteristics of social stratification was given by Melvin M. Thumin. The first one is, it is social in nature. Social in nature means if a society has multiple classes or multiple groups, if one group claims they are superior, okay, and remaining groups are objecting that claim, then it could not become that group could not become a superior group. So if a group became a superior, the remaining groups also should accept that position. That is called society, social in nature. Understand? Social in nature means it is the criteria of ranking accepted by each and every member in that society. So that you should remember. It is the consequence of all the people agreeing that layered arrangement. The second one is it has its roots in ancient time. So just now, just like 50 years ago or 20 years ago, if something hierarchy, if we observe in our society, it could not be qualified as a stratification because it is in the transition. So that stratification must be stabilized for at least 500 years, 1000 years, or 2000 years. Those things are qualified. Those things give you the structural features of a society. Just like recent time, whatever stratification that we could not consider because those positions will be changed immediately, and it is universal in nature. So here the anthropologists are contending these characteristics. So because socialists are always focusing on agrarian societies, urban societies, civilized societies. In every of these societies, we could trace one or another form of stratification. But anthropologists, they were rejecting this claim. But the time being, you should remember it is a universal. And I will show you that how you write contend it. So it is diverse in forms. It is not the same in everywhere. So one place it is called estate system, another place it is called as a varna system, some another place we call as administrative. So there are different. It is the consequential. So deliberately formed because of division of labor. So initially the society differentiated between the groups on the basis of division of labor, but later they started valuation of these groups and their contributions, and the groups ranking come into being over a period of time. That is called consequential. So over a period of time, because of deliberate actions, it became a layered arrangement or permanent groups. So these are all about various characteristics. So next we will see functions of social stratification. So if you go to the achievement based, so achievement based stratification, if a person born in lower strata, so lower strata, he receive very less privileges, socially, economically, politically, religiously. So by his own efforts, if he could rise to the top, then he will receive more privileges, status, rewards, and etc. So in this kind of stratification, wherever mobility allowed, so from lower to upper, so that mobility is served, that means these kind of stratification, these kind of societies, this stratification serves for an individual as it brings the competition. So here all the people competing with the upper layered people to rise their status, because it is a competition, and it provides motivation, because what is achievement means rising their status for himself as well as his or her children's. So that is the motivation of for his survival. So that's why it is provide motivation. So here, administrative setup or occupational setup. So here in caste system, nobody change their caste occupation. It is hereditary and permanently fixed. But in income based or administrative positions or occupation based stratification, anybody can choose any kind of occupation. You could excel in that. That's why you will also get job satisfaction. For suppose a Sudra has no interest in doing agricultural activity or some kind of service community activities, but he has more warrior skills and interest in doing the soldiering. So he could not be hired as a warrior, because the warrior skills are only reserved for Kshatriya community, right? So this is how, if somebody wants some particular kind of profession, so it could be possible because he can choose in a occupation based stratification, and it serves as a mobility. So the groups or individuals can move from one place to one layer to another layer, mobility. And it recognition of the talent. If a person has good talent in administration, he will become a bureaucrat. If a person has good talent in ruling, he will become a politician. If a person has good talent or skill related to the divinity, he can become a priest. So this is how whatever the talent an individual possessed, based on that, he could be recognized by the society. So this is functions serves for the individual. Next, if you see functions for the society. So here that kind of closed, rigid stratifications such as Varna or caste. So every caste has one occupation, right? So here you can see. So if somebody needs kind of any stool or gold, we know that who are doing that work. So each group has dedicated. Some groups need weaving the cloth. If somebody wants cloth, you know that who are making that cloth. Somebody wants like agriculture inputs, you know that blacksmith made that agriculture inputs. So this is how different groups took over different occupations, and clubbing their all goods and services, they're exchanging among the groups. So this is how, that means no group is self-sufficient and self-reliable. So it depends on the another group goods. That is called social contract. So it brings the reciprocity or interdependency. So interdependency among the groups. So this interdependency is the force which avoid the conflicts among the groups, thereby that society survives, right? So for entire society to be stable and survive, each group produces different kind of goods, and these goods were exchanged among all the groups, thereby each group receive all type of goods, even though he produces a single good, but he receives that remaining goods produced by the another groups, so thereby he will become a self-sufficient. So this is how, as a society, it provided reciprocity, interdependency, through which it derives solidarity, stability, and continuity. So Indian society was the caste system was basically an interdependent system. So it was called as Jajamani system. So Jajamani system, in which land, agriculture communities were supported by service communities, those we call as the commons. So commons goods were took over by the agriculture communities. Agriculture communities, grains, cereals, pulses, everything is shared among the common communities. This is how interdependency, each one requires another people to survive. So this is called functions for societal level. So now we will move to the last dimension, theories of social stratification. So discuss various approaches of study of social stratification, which came in the exam in 2017 for 20 marks. So now we can see there are three theories: functional theory, Marxist or conflict theory, and the third theory is nothing but anthropological approach of studying social stratification. So what is by functionalist theory? So the functionalist theory, they said that it is based on their social contract. Like, so it is basis of social division of labor, which was given by Talcott Parson, Kingsley Davis, as well as Wilbert Morel. So every society, see, every individual, they are always follow organism analogy. So I will tell you that what is organism analogy. So if an individual has to survive, he requires some basic needs in the form of food, shelter, so clothing, and so when you come into the reproductive ways, satisfaction of the biological needs, and security, physical security for himself. So this is how, and if an individual has to survive, he has to fulfill certain basic needs. So if a society wants to survive, so society means various social groups. So there should be conflicts minimized. If this group is very numerically dominant and if this group is suppressing, killing the another groups, this society or remaining groups could not survive. That means there should be a mechanisms or processes which brings the integration of the society. So that is nothing but the goods which is produced by the different groups that serves as a interdependence and reciprocity. Cooperation and interdependency is the mechanism through which society survives. And at the same time, society has, it is, if conflict arose between the groups, it should be resolved. Okay, goods must be distributed among the people. If one of the group producing precious goods and they are not supposed to distribute their goods with another groups, then the conflicts emerge. That means distribution of the goods, okay, political decision making, everything should be done. That means every society has certain basic needs in the form of polity, religion, economic activity. So when these needs are fulfilled, the society continues from one generation to another generation. So just like how an individual satisfying his needs, the society has to satisfy their needs. These needs are collective needs. Collective needs are nothing but individual groups contributed their part for collective survival of the entire, per se, village, per se, tribe, per se, nation. Understand? So the basic needs are needs to be fulfilled for the society. It is the prerequisite for survival of the society. These basic needs are all derived from the different groups through their different functions or different goods and services they are producing. So this is how functionalist theories said that, so each group is contributing for the survival, continuity, and solidarity of the entire society. So now, if each group has the functions, and there should be, every group should be treated equally, right? Then why ranking system? Why superiority, subordination? Why higher and lower? Why the privileges, differentiation between the groups or different layers? So even though each layer is contributing for survival, solidarity, continuity of the society. Why? Because if any group is functionless, it's not contributing anything, obviously we can put in the lower, but every layer within the stratification is contributing for the collectiveness. Then why only certain groups are top, certain groups are under the bottom? So here the inequality or ranking comes into because of their differentiation in their skills, training, risks. So risks associated in their works or in their production of goods and services. So for say, if you take in Indian system, Indian context, so Indian context, even though Brahmins have separate functions, Kshatriyas have separate functions, so Vaishyas have separate function, Sudras have separate function. Why should we place the Brahmins always top? So here Brahmins, so they are guardians of religion. So they preach the, they are the teachers, they preach the religious things. Okay, so it requires intensive training of 12 to 14 years. They have to go to the Gurukulas where the Guru trains him. So that is called Brahmacharya. In Brahmacharya, so nearly 12 to 14 years, they go vigorous training. So it is memorizing the Vedas, Upanishad, mantras. It's not an ordinary task. So that means the skill they possess, it is learned after vigorous training, which could not be done by the other people. That's why, so they are very, religiously they are pure because they are preaching the religious things. And the training they receive, that is difficult. That's why they receive always higher social status and privileges. So Kshatriyas, if you take, so they do political activities, controlling the citizens, law and order and everything. So whenever there was a raids or attacks by the another kingdom, so they were ready to sacrifice their life. So sacrifice their life, right? They are the soldiers, they are the rulers. So it is their primary duty to protect the remaining members of the society. So means when situation arises, they are ready to sacrifice their own life. So without thinking about their children and their family members. So this kind of risk. When risks are more, obviously you will receive more social status, economic privileges as well as religious privileges. When it comes to Sudras, it requires a specialized skill of transporting goods from one place to another place and that kind of. So here the skill made them so more than the Vaishyas, more than the Sudras, and Sudras were, so they are just like common services. So like they are serving all the three varnas in the form of service providing communities. So here regarding agriculture or services, the child is trained by their fathers. The child every day by sitting along with the father trains him. So within the short duration of time, the child learns the skills of the father. Here there is nothing like so much of risk, but here the Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, Brahmins, they require different skills, different trainings, different risks. When more risk, more privileges. When less risk, less privileges. So this is how, though every layer is contributing for survival of entire society, the hierarchy, ranking, privileges, differentiation come into being because of their skills, training, risks associated with their kind of contribution, from their contributions, that you can remember. So, but here, so this functional theory, they said that it is like a perfectly solidarity society because nobody has complaint against the another layer. But in reality, it was heavily criticized as, so that means every layer, every group has dedicated a particular task. So their children are excelled because the father pass all his skill to the children, and children's along with father skills, they acquire new skills also. This is the how efficiency increases over a generation. But in reality, it hinders the efficiency. If some of the person born in untouchable has very good skill of warring, so in the wars or warrior skills, he has more efficient than the Kshatriyas, but still he could not be allowed as a warrior. That means here the talent is suppressed. Efficiency we are not using properly. So that is also a problem. So sometimes, so some tasks are more important than the another layer, but those are all placed bottom also. So who evaluate these risks and everything when it comes to the ranking? So that was also a problematic. And always lower people shown the always lower people show distrust, okay, dishonest and hostility towards the upper layer people. If you look at in our context, Indian context, always these untouchable people accusing Brahmins were the culprits for their plit, for their social conditions. Because they have the Manu, he had created like Manu Dharma. In that Dharma, he provided various duties, functions associated with the various varnas and how they should treat the untouchables. So this is how the hostility, distrust in the lower layers when it comes to the upper layers. So these are all the criticisms. So next one is, so this is how over a period of time, the proper division of labor and the risks associated with that works that led to the gradual emergence of social stratification. So when it comes to Marxist theory or conflict theory, it was the result of conflicts between the different classes that led to the gradual emergence of stratification. So when agriculture born, some of the individuals, they control the land and they became the owners of the land. So land owners. And obviously the most negative consequences of birth of agriculture was destruction of the forest. All the forests areas were cleared and converted into agricultural areas. So that means the remaining people, when some of the individuals controlled the land, remaining people became landlessness. Obviously, and if they want to go, other areas to survive, there were no forests existed. That means obviously they have to survive in these areas only. And these landless families started working on the land-owned families, under the land-owned families. And here, there is always a mistrust about owner and as well as the landless class. So when it comes to the after industrial revolution, the owners and workers, because all these people control the means of production or means of survival. So means of production or means of survival. And these people are always dependent on the above layer. So here, so the tensions, so because these individuals, exploiting these people for their benefit, that led to the tensions between them. So all the individuals who have this ownership, they joined hands together and they formed a separate class. And these people, resourceless people, dependent people, they formed into a class that is landless class. Okay, so this class struggle led to the emergence of wealth-based stratification. So the owner class as well as working class, rich class as well as middle and poor class. Understand? So this is how the conflicts between haves of means of production or means of survival, have nots of means those who don't have means of production or means of survival, that conflict led to the emergence of permanent way of stratification. So this was given by Karl Marx. So Karl Marx said that class struggle is nothing but the reason for emergence of social stratification. And the third one is anthropological approach. So anthropological approach basically seen this social stratification against the universality. If you take that Sorokin, he said that unstratified society with real equality of its members is a myth. So in our entire human history, we hadn't created any kind of society which have equality among all the members. Understand? So further he said that, so pre-agriculture societies such as hunting and gathering, okay, fishing societies, pastoral societies, horticulture societies, these we call as a pre-agriculture societies. So they too had gender-based division, male has superior over the female, okay, age-based difference. So that means middle-aged people, old-age people, children. So these age-based segregation of the division of the labor, so are in incipient stages of horticulture as well as the pastoralism. They got this private property. Incipient stage means initial stages of the acquisition of ownership over animals as well as the land. So incipient stages, these pre-agriculture societies too had some kind of early stages of social stratification. That means one or another form which existed in every kind of society, whether it is a agrarian based civilization or non-agriculture societies. But anthropologists, they are contended that so inequality, so stratification means inequality. So if there are so many pre-agriculture societies, per se, if you take that New Year society, it is the pastoral based society. So New Year's, they are residing in South Sudan. So which was studied by Ivan Pritchard. So here the society is divided into various villages, and each village is lived by kinsman, that we call as minimum lineage. So minimum lineage. So every village is a minimum lineage. That means it's not the minimum, minimal. So minimal lineage. So that means every village is lived by kinsman, relatives, all the brothers and their children, and all this next generation people are connected by blood, and they get married and they produce the children. Again, they are born from a common ancestor. This is how every village is lived by kinsman, and this kinsman decides about their polity, their economy, their religion, and they are in every village. So every village is same in manner.